Hello, and thank you for joining us on ABC24 This Week. I'm your host, Pepper Baker, and you are here for the real stories behind the big stories. And I hope you'll continue to watch every Sunday at 9 a.m. or 10:35 p.m. or on our 24 Plus streaming app. All right, let's see who is at the table today. As always, ABC24 political analyst Otis Sanford. We have Susan Thorpe of Thorpe Communications, and we have Luke Simbel, the Republican Party of Shelby County's vice chair. Thank you all for being here. All right, well, the topics for today, I have a feeling I won't be doing much talking on the first one, are Otis Sanford's op-ed in the Daily Memphian about the GOP's selective outrage for pardons and political corruption elicited a fiery response from Senator Brent Taylor. Then we'll hear about Memphis Democratic leaders, what they think about the vote to end the government shutdown, particularly how the Senate Democrats gave up their fight for health care subsidies. And then we'll end with the Memphis Safe Task Force's impact on immigrant communities in our area. So we're going to try something a little different for this show because one of our panelists happened to be the subject matter of the first topic. So Otis, I'd like for you to explain your op-ed and what your stance was there.
Well, very briefly, first of all, let me say emphatically that I never want to be the story. I'm a journalist and an opinion journalist at that, so I raise issues, and that's what I did here. The former Speaker of the House, who was convicted of fraud, and he was sentenced to 3 years. And he also, and I'm drawing a blank on his name right now.
Casada.
Yeah, Glenn Casada.
Casada.
That's who I'm talking about here. And he was convicted. He was sentenced to 3 years just in September of this year. And just a week or so ago, the president gave him a full pardon. And my column simply said, where's the outrage here? This man defrauded Tennesseans. He hoodwinked his Republican colleagues because it was all over money that the Republicans used for mailings. And so I just asked, where was the outrage? And I pointed out, starting actually with Marsha Blackburn, Bill Hagerty, and Brent Taylor. Of course, Mr. Taylor has much thinner skin than I do, and he took exception. Obviously, it kind of stung him a little bit, and that's the reason why he wrote what I consider to be a sort of below-the-belt column, but that's his right to do so. That's basically what happened here. I would not have written that column if Casada had not been a Tennessean. I haven't written about every pardon that this president has done, even the questionable ones. But this affects Tennesseans. This affects my tax money, your tax money, everybody's tax money was defrauded here. And he got a pardon 2 months after he got sentenced. And that's why I wrote the column.
So you will have more time to speak on it. This was Otis's column, and then Brent Taylor took to Facebook, actually, and then the Daily Memphian put his response as well and published that. So I did have some quotes that I picked out from Brent Taylor. We'll read through them here. So here are the three that stood out for me, starting off with the very first sentence right off the top. Obsessed Otis Sanford's latest screed in the Daily Memphian is like my mother's ancient shag carpet. Faded, tangled in yesterday's dust, and fooling no one into thinking it still belongs in the room. He goes on to explain he and Otis never wrote an op-ed about former President Biden's pardons and how Otis's silence then was deafening. That led to the second statement that stood out. Obsessed Otis trots out U.S. Senator Marsha Blackburn's justifiable frustration about rampant juvenile crime in our community you and your ilk have allowed to go unchecked, and then plays the race card because Casada is white. Then the last important note, Otis tried to blame me for hypocrisy, but I've uttered 0 words about Biden's decisions because my voters didn't send me to the state Senate to opine about D.C.'s swamp games. Otis, though, he had the platform to call out Biden's double standard when it happened. Instead, he waited for a Tennessee hook to drag Casada, Cawthron, Blackburn, Hagerty, and me into his whataboutism. So I'm going to let you have your chance, but Luke, I do want to open it up to you. What are your thoughts on this?
Look, I'm not a journalist, so I'll leave that to the journalists to talk about. But I can tell you Republicans love somebody who's willing to fight back. And we've heard a lot about sometimes the media being tainted by Trump derangement syndrome, right? When you're trying to read an article and they're trying to make it all about Trump and they can't just seem to get beyond Trump. And I really think we have a local strain of TDS, and that is Taylor derangement syndrome. It seems to me like whenever you have a Republican that's actually willing to fight, to be out front, to have fun with it, Senator Taylor obviously is having a lot of fun with his response to Otis's column. It's almost like he was happy, he was brought in, having nothing to do with this specific case because he got to respond. So I would just encourage, I think the media in general, let's not have TDS and this local strain of Taylor derangement syndrome.
Okay, Susan.
Nice thing for a Republican to say. I'm really on the fence with this. With my friend Otis and Brent Taylor, who I've known and been friendly with for 30 years, for full disclosure, since he was young and on the council and I was a young reporter. I don't always agree with what Brent does, nor do I always agree with what he says and how he says it. Sometimes he's very much over the top, and I think his response to Otis was a little bit over the top. But I think when you wrote the column and you were rightfully critical of the president pardoning these, and you left out Kelsey, or did you include Kelsey in there too? He got a full pardon too, State Kelsey.
Yeah, I mentioned Kelsey.
I think that is wrong. I think what the president is doing with the pardon power, I think he's abusing it. I think pardoning all the people who attacked the Capitol on January 6 years ago, I think was absolutely wrong. But I don't disagree with saying, Marshall Blackburn, where are you? You scream against crime. Haggerty, you call up against crime. Where were you? Where's your outrage? Because they are they're elected to the federal office. Brent Taylor is a state senator. And I think bringing him into this fray is a little bit of a false equivalence. Now,
No,
I do love you.
He's got his posture. He had to fix himself.
There's a big difference, the way I see it, between white-collar criminals who steal from the public purse and criminals who murder and rape. And Brent Taylor's focus has been, and you don't like it, and I don't totally agree with his method, but against our district attorney, Steve Mulroy. And that's a big part of his screaming. And you may not like what he's doing to Steve Mulroy, but Mulroy also is a creature of the state, and Brent Taylor is not going to go after a federal issue like what Trump did. He's not going to do it publicly. I don't see that he has to. I mean, if he wants to, but I don't know why you didn't go after David Kustoff. Wait a minute. Kustoff spent many of his years as the West Tennessee U.S. attorney prosecuting these kind of white-collar crimes. And he is in a federal office, but you didn't hear peep from him either. But you brought Brent Taylor into it and not David Kustoff. And I think, Otis, I love you dearly, but I think there was a little false equivalency there.
Okay. The only thing I'll say about this, because columnists are not in the business to be liked. And if you make half the people mad for one reason and the other half mad for another reason, you've done your job. The only thing I will say about it where Brent is concerned is that unlike Kustoff, Kustoff has not been on this campaign to just go after people here in this community. And it includes people now, especially when we're talking about this task force and ICE, they are going after people who are not violent criminals. There are plenty of, and we'll talk about this in a later segment, there's plenty of legitimate reporting that has shown that ICE has gone after and arrested and hauled off people who are not criminals. Let me finish now. Let me finish. And so that's the reason I brought up Taylor. Taylor has been on this campaign to go after pretty much any and everybody that is perceived to be breaking the law here. And that's why I brought him in and not David Kustoff. I'll just leave the rest of the comments to themselves, and I'll just let the readers decide, you know, what they take and what they don't take from a column.
We are going into overtime, so really quick points.
So
here.
the only thing I would say is, like, you still haven't addressed, the main point of his column was you're seizing all this attention on President Trump, saying it's hypocritical of Republicans not to call it out, but I don't think there's any segment or any article or column that you wrote about President Biden and the auto pen and the 4,000 pardons and pardoning his son preemptively before charges could be brought. I mean,
Again,
that's
we're
a double
into
standard.
another false equivalence.
Well,
That's a total false equivalent.
totally.
And let me,
Yeah.
we'll end it with
Last
this.
point.
We'll end it with this.
Let him end.
As I said a minute ago, Hunter Biden was not a Tennessean. Hunter Biden never defrauded from Tennessee. As far as let me finish again.
But
now.
you're calling out hypocrisy.
I'm
And
calling
is it not
out-
hypocritical of you not to call it out?
I write about local issues. Now, if there's a national story, I look for the local issue. The local issue here was the Speaker of the House, his assistant, and the other former representative who was in this case. That's a local story for me. Hunter Biden was not a local story for me. And so if I was going to write about Hunter, I should have written about the guy who was the crypto guy. Yeah, I don't write about everything.
Well,
that he
I'm going to finish this off by saying I have known Otis for 40 years.
At least.
And I don't know, honestly, a journalist in town that is more fair, more open, and better to work with than Otis Sanford.
I don't know if our viewers would actually agree with that one, but we will see. All right, when we come back, the government shutdown is over, but we're going to talk about how Memphis lawmakers reacted to the Senate Democrats' vote and how they caved in. Stay with us.